The president of the Nigeria Labour Congress, Ajaero, has honored police invitation with his visit to the Intelligence Response Team office in Abuja. Senior reporter Ademola Lawrence reports.
As early as 8 a.m., the 54 affiliates of the Nigerian Labour Congress gathered here to march in solidarity with their president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, who was invited by Nigerian police on allegation of cyber terrorism.
We will be here. They will go and come back to meet us here. We have clear conscience that the president will go and come back.
At Labour House, lead counsel to the NLC president Femi Falana appealed to the Labour members not to march to the police station with them, but assured them that the NLC president will return to the Labour House.
We'll appreciate if you all wait behind. I can assure you we are not going to be long. I can assure you we are not going to be long. Because the president is innocent of all the monstrous allegations.
Mr. Ajaero arrived with his lawyers Femi Falana, Dejadeyoju and Maxwell Okpara to honor the police invitation regarding allegation of terrorism, financing, cybercrime and other related offences.
We're not going to
His stay at the police IRT office was brief, lasting less than 30 minutes before he left alongside his lawyers and other Labour leaders who joined him in solidarity. The deputy lead counsel to Ajaero, while addressing the NLC members, insisted that the allegations leveled against NLC president were unfounded. He answered questions about tenants who rented an office in the Abuja NLC building, whom the police allege is involved in funding terrorism.
We heard is quite different from what was contained in the invitation letter.
Wow!
So, but whichever that is the case, now that they have learned their lesson and correct themselves, we have taken it in that manner. So they said that the NLC president, they just want to ask him one or two questions in respect to a tenant that is here.
We have gone there and we are back. I just want to confirm to you that as a citizen, I've gone there and we are back here. So, and you can't do this job we are doing without this type of hazard.
Recall that the NLC leadership are threatening to go on strike if the police authorities attempt to detain him unjustly. Ademola Lawrence, TVC News, Abuja.
Let's bring in now, he joins us via Zoom, lawyer and consultant Ahmed Abas to talk about this matter. Thanks a lot, Mr. Abas, for joining us again. Good to see you. Right, so what do you make of the build-up to the moment when Comrade Ajaero presented himself in answer to the police summons? Mr. Abas, kindly unmute yourself. All right, of course, we can get through to Mr. Abas. Thanks for joining us. Yes, we can hear you now. Yeah, I was asking what you make of, the build-up in this raging controversy, Labour saying they are being intimidated. All right, finally, Comrade Ajaero, accompanied by his legal team and others, honored the police summons. How do you see the whole matter?
Like I said, thank you for having me. That what he has done is what is required of any responsible citizen who has nothing to hide. The police, by the law setting the police up, they have the right to prevent commission of crimes, and in the process of preventing such, they have the right to invite anyone for investigation. And since they've sent him a letter of invitation and his lawyers have also made themselves available, I think that is what is required of any citizen. The police have the power to invite anyone, and then as the event unfolds, we learned he has been there, and then we await the outcome of whatever be the interaction between both parties, since they said the investigation is still ongoing.
So just like NLC President Ajaero said, he said that now that the police invitation saga is over, that was a leading statement he made when he was addressing the NLC members. Do you think that that invitation which he had honored yesterday is over, or do you feel that there will still be some sort of investigations that will be carried on, on the ground?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Mr. Abbas, could you hear my question?
Yeah. So,
Mr. Abbas, did you hear my question?
Yes.
Well, let me repeat myself. I said, Mr. Ajaero, when he was addressing the NLC members, he said that now that the invitation of the police saga is over. That's a leading statement he made when he was addressing his members. But I'm saying that looking from previous experiences, as he was invited and then he wasn't detained, and we saw the jubilation and all of that, do you feel that has signaled an end to the investigation, whatever investigation the police might be carrying out that now involved the NLC president?
Well, most times criminal cases do not necessarily have an expiry date. So probably the preliminary investigation by the police warranting their is being invited. Maybe he's been able to answer to the questions that they put to him, and then they feel there's no need for them to detain him. Ordinarily, the offenses were very serious. Offenses, terrorism, financing of terrorism, cybercrime, they are very serious, and treasonable felony, they are very serious offenses. And I'm sure that if there was any need for the police to have detained him for further investigation, they would have detained him. So maybe they do not have, maybe he has been able to answer the questions that they have before then, since they said originally they raided an office, carted away some correspondence, and they saw some correspondence between the NLC and the entity. And that is why they are inviting him for questioning. Maybe he has answered the questions they have presently, and that's why they had to let him go. If it's needed subsequently, I'm sure they will also invite him. But being a very serious offense, he spent about 2 hours there. So I'm sure that he has answered their question satisfactorily. That is why they actually granted him, they released him to go home. So if there's any other question, maybe in future, they could invite him.
Right. And as you said, the charges, the allegations, you can also say were weighty, and you have, alluded to that aspect. But then in response to what the Labour leaders said after, Mr. Ajaero's meeting with the police, they said, the lawyers also said as much that the questioning at the IRT wasn't, around the weighty and baseless charges. Those were their words, baseless especially, that the questioning wasn't around the baseless charges, which we all know are weighty. Do you see a lapse on the part of the police authorities in this wise now, or is it still well within their constitutional role to investigate crime?
I say this with all profound respect to the Nigerian police. From the onset, I knew there was something fundamentally wrong with the drama that was going about, the raiding of NLC, the invitation of the president, and all the rest of them. I think in serious environments, when you have such a weighty allegation against a person in the standing of the president of the NLC, I expect the Nigerian police to have done their homework very well. It should have been a little bit more tactful. Get your evidence, do your investigation thoroughly, and ensure that by the time you are inviting the NLC president, if there is a misunderstanding of your invitation, even by the public, you will have sufficient evidence to be able to adduce before the public to show that this is really a serious allegation. For me, yes, it's a little bit tardy. I think they could do better. They could do better because the whole drama surrounding is actually, eroding whatever confidence people have in the Nigerian police and the government. With the end governance strike and all the rest of them, there's already an insinuation that probably the government was trying to browbeat the NLC for their role and all the rest of them. And if it turns out that these allegations, as weighty as they are, eventually falls like a pack of cards, that they were just empty threats and all the rest of them, it will further, erode the confidence people have in the Nigerian police and in the government. Like I said somewhere, the government already has too many problems on their hand, and the institutions of state should not be adding to the reputation and the perception of Nigerians about the government. So they could do better.
So are you reading political undertone to this invitation of the NLC president to the Nigerian police? Because just like you said, the end bad governance and the activities of the NLC during this time and some of the issues that sprung up during the period, or could it be because the NLC also threatened to go on a nationwide strike if their president was ever detained? Do you read any political undertone, or could it be due to the threat by the NLC that led to maybe he's walking in free and then walking out freely?
I do not think any serious government will take the threat of going on strike as the basis for releasing someone that you allege that you are inviting for treasonable felony, a crime to overthrow a sitting government undemocratically, an invitation bordering on terrorism financing, which is of global concern, and there are global, agreements to ensure that such crimes are actually discouraged in countries. I do not think that any right-thinking law enforcement institution or government alleging someone of treasonable felony, terrorism financing, will release the suspect simply because his colleagues said they are going to go on strike. That's not a sufficient reason at all. It's not a sufficient reason. Like I said, probably they invited him, the questions they have with respect to the reading and information they carted away from the Nigerian Labour Congress building, maybe he has been able to trash it. No government, no serious government, no law enforcement institution in any part of the world that is properly called by that name will release a suspect on such weighty charges on the basis that his labor union threatened they are going to go on strike. How does that take away from the fact that he has committed a serious crime against the state and against humanity? I do not think so. Like we said, I think it's a little bit tardy.
All right, let's look at the powers of the police and the power of Nigerians, the ordinary Nigerian, though there's also a debate as to whether the summons was issued to Joe Ajaero as a Nigerian landlord or somebody who is controlling a property, or whether it was addressed to him by extension as the president of the NLC. A letter was issued asking him to present himself the following day for questioning, but he, with advice, you could argue, by his lawyers, says, I'm not coming out now. I will come at an opportune day, a week after. How do you see this? Is this something that ordinary Nigerians can also explore?
Yes, you see, you cannot take, there's no court that can take away the power of the police to investigate any matter that borders on the commission of crime. No court can take away that power from the police to invite entities, institutions, Nigerians for questioning, for investigation. They have the power constitutionally and under the Police Act. And you also, whosoever is being invited, also have a right to be represented or to be accompanied by a legal practitioner of his choice or her choice. And the reason is to ensure you are not unduly influenced to incriminate yourself in the course of making statements. However, there are times the police will invite and put a date. As human beings, so many factors could intervene that makes it impossible for you to honor their invitation on the set date. What courtesy demands is for you to communicate to them and give them reason as to why you cannot come on the set date and request for you to be accommodated on another date. If, for example, as at the time they call you, you're actually out of jurisdiction. Let's assume you're outside Nigeria, you are in another state transacting a business, or you are actually a little bit indisposed due to health challenges. You can, call the police, or your counsel or your lawyer can call the police to fix another date. It is, yes, most Nigerians, if taking advantage of that possibilities. I know on a daily basis, police can invite you, say, okay, come tomorrow. And if you know it's not convenient for you, you simply tell them when it's going to be convenient for you to see them.
Interesting stuff. But then if you look at terrorism financing, treasonable felony, and cybercrime, you know, these are weighty allegations, as you've said. But this is not begging the question, or this is supposed to put to questions some Nigerians who are saying, come on, listen, we've actually received lists of people or some persons who were sponsoring terrorism as released by the UAE, and they released to the Nigerian government, and those who were arrested by the UAE are undergoing their 7-year term. But Nigeria seemed to be unconcerned, despite their toga, their outburst on fighting terrorism and bringing some of those people to justice. But it doesn't appear that we've seen anything done so far. How are you reading these? What's our stance? What do you consider to be our stance in really prosecuting, terrorism and, their sponsors?
Well, anytime, you see, the ability to keep your geographical borders free from crime is what shapes people's perception about your country, the safety, the ability to invest. And every serious government must take the issue of terrorism very seriously. Kidnapping, banditry. Any serious government must take such crimes very seriously. Harness its collective law enforcement capabilities and ensure they drastically reduce it. Because if you are unable to do that, one, it has a way of disrupting the entire economy, because wherever you have terrorism, banditry, all the rest of them, you see, it will affect people's ability to go to the farm. And that's why we are having, high cost of food items. It also creates a negative perception in the international community concerning the safety of your country for them to do business. It distorts the economy. And also, a man by nature is, tends towards, some kind of lawlessness. That's why government are set up with the apparatus of violence to keep the society from, criminals. Because if you allow the society to go without sanctions, without penalties for wrongdoing, you discover that a lot of people will just gravitate towards committing such offenses. It becomes rewarding for you to be a criminal. And that is exactly what is happening in Nigeria. Terrorism, banditry, they are becoming, a very big business. And we need to appeal to the law enforcement officers and agencies that they need to wake up. And the government should also sit down very well and see what is wrong. Because you can't have a crime becoming more or less like a permanent feature of your national life. This has been ongoing from the time of Yaradua, from the time of Jonathan, Buhari, and now President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We need to sit down and take...
I'm afraid you've not essentially, answered the question. Of course, you've really, painted a real background, regarding how we are fighting terrorism. But I'm talking about the list that were released to the Nigerian government during the Buhari administration. Have you seen or have you heard of any of these, the perpetrators, the sponsors, alleged perpetrators, to be sponsors of this terrorism, to be brought to justice?
No, I haven't seen any. I haven't seen those lists. No, I've not seen any one of them being charged to court, or or the government doing anything serious to demonstrate that. I don't know whether they are above the law or they are special breed of Nigerians. We don't even know, and that's why most of this action, our inability to go after those that are actually undermining the security of this nation, creates confidence and deficit of trust between the citizenry and the governors. Because when you go after criminals, you sentence somebody who stole telephone. I'm not saying we are supporting, criminalities of whatever nature. When you can prosecute with speed those who steal telephone, and you sentence them to 70 years imprisonment, sometimes you wonder. You have a list of people that have been submitted to the federal government for committing such heinous crime, and yet we are not seeing any move by the government to prosecute them. It has a way of puncturing the confidence that Nigerians have in their government. Simply look at the society as a society of all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others, and it doesn't breed patriotism in anybody.
Right. Let's also look at the response of Labour in this matter, because that has also, sparked some form of reactions by observers. Its leader is being, summoned for questioning on these kind of charges that would naturally, they are essentially waiting, as we've already established. But then the threats of going on, a massive strike, mother of all industrial actions, trade unions already at alert to embark upon, their own, down their tools, really, if the leader in question, Mr. Ajaero, Comrade Ajaero, had been detained yesterday. What do you make of that? Does it speak of, some worrying trend, worrying dimension to the rights of, workers to down tools?
Well, you see, the Nigerian labor, that's why sometimes I empathize with the government, and because of their inability by the state officials to read in between the line, to know how to be, like a bridge between the government and the people they are actually governing. As of today now, Nigerian Labour Congress sees itself as the voice of the people. They've been agitating for increment in salary. They just signed, a minimum wage pact. There's been agitation, there's been strikes here and there. They see themselves as one of the remaining, pillar of the voice of the people. And therefore, there's this notion or this perception that if you go after NLC, it's like you are trying to silence the voice of opposition against whatever be the issues that they are raising on behalf of the citizenry. And the unions are basically also taking a stand that, is the government trying to intimidate us from agitating for better welfare packages for our workers and the citizenry? So they are seeing it as a war between the government, who wants to have its way without being questioned, and between us, who seem to be the representative of the people. And that's why the government ought to have been a little bit careful. Otherwise, you play into the gallery. You just simply play, and the sentiment will weigh in favor of Nigerian Labour Congress. If at the end of the day, you sat down, you tell the entire world that you are inviting the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress for treasonable felony, for financing, terrorism financing, and at the end of the day, the charges carry the allegation carries no water. It is just a piece of a tissue paper. It will eventually dovetail into, the belief that the government was actually punching the Nigerian Labour Congress for the stand it has taken against some of these measures the government has actually introduced and some of the policies the government has actually introduced. The Labour Congress have a right to stand behind their leader, to support him in case he's been witch hunted or he's been intimidated by the government. They have a right, and whatever tool within the ambit of the law, whether it be strike to get their desire across, or to pressurize the government, so long as it's within the ambit of the law and devoid of violence, devoid of criminality, it is a welcome and acceptable tool on a global level.
Right. So, what do you now think should be the way forward? I mean, going forward rather for the NLC, assuming, or let's just assume that this is over, this phase is over of terrorism charges and all of allegations and all of that. How do you think the NLC, the labor union as a whole, should conduct themselves so that they will not be enmeshed or one way or the other stained, by some of these allegations in future terms as they go about, their daily struggles?
Very well. You see, both government and the Labour Congress are playing two different roles. The government is elected as a servant of the people, and their responsibility is the security and the welfare of the Nigerians. And if the Labour Congress, being a union of workers, feels the government's policies affecting the workers in a negative way, they have a right constitutionally to keep advocating for a better working condition for workers within the ambit of the law, devoid of violence, devoid of criminality, devoid of destruction of properties. They must continue to play the role in such a way that Nigerians will see them as being the voice of the people. And the government also must be very proactive and must be very sensitive and to be able to listen to workers, sit down constantly with them, and make sure they reach a compromise. After all, whether you are elected, whether you work permanently as a career officer in the government of the federation, both of them are called servants. You can either be a public servant or a civil servant. And a servant must not be more audacious than the master. The servant must be able to listen to the master. It is the master that will tell you, the shoe is pinching me here and I want you to find a solution to it. So it's about having a listening ear and being able to empathize. The challenge with Nigeria, like I do say sometimes, is that, look, if a medical doctor inherits a very bad case of a patient that has been badly treated, if the patient is going through pains, the doctor should not be heard saying, after all, I didn't cause the pain. I'm only trying to ameliorate it. It won't sit well with a patient that is going through terrible pain for the mismanagement by other doctors. The doctor that has inherited the case must assume full responsibility and keep reassuring the patient, I'm doing everything possible to ensure you get back to your feet. When the government adopts that approach to governance, I think things will go well for both parties and the society.
All right, that's all the time that we have for this conversation. Ahmed Abas, thank you very much for your contributions on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you.